Well, my name is Peter Singer, and I started an organization called Care in Action Minnesota back in 2005. So part of what I do is manage and direct Care in Action Minnesota, and then also I am a therapist and clinical supervisor with a focus on kids who have experienced trauma and adult survivors of trauma as well. So that's kind of my background. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and do therapy related to those issues. So, Care in Action Minnesota. Our goal is to help equip the faith community to respond to child maltreatment. And for me, like I think a lot of us, this has a personal motivation. And that personal motivation is my friend Bobby. And when I was growing up, Bobby, Danny, and I were always together. It was us three. It was Bobby, Danny, and Pete. Bobby, Danny, and Pete all the time. We did everything together. A little bit of a difference whenever we would have like overnights and things like that. Bobby's parents would never let him do the overnight. And for whatever reason, my parents would not let me do overnights over at Bobby's house either. I didn't know what was really going on. Talking to my parents, they knew something wasn't quite right, but they didn't know exactly what was going on. At some point later in my elementary school years, Bobby moved away. And as Bobby was moving, he had several brothers. My mom said to his mom, "Oh, I wish Bobby could stay with us." And Bobby's mom just got this look on her face, and my mom recounts this to me and said, "Only if you can take all of them. Can you take all of them?" And then she realized that my mom was joking. And then so she backed off. It was a few months after that Bobby's dad killed Bobby's brother. And the whole time, Bobby's dad had been viciously abusing everyone in the family in every way imaginable. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, severe beatings, absolute humiliation. If the food wasn't good enough, he'd dump it on the floor, stomp on it, and then make everyone eat it off the floor while positioned like dogs. Intense abuse. Bobby's dad was actually one of the pastors in the church. And Bobby's mom went to the senior pastor and said, "Please help. This is going on, and I don't know how much longer we can live like this. He's doing all of this." And the pastor of the church let her know that the problem was that she was not being submissive enough, and that if she had been submissive enough, then the abuse would stop. And so she went back to try and be more submissive, and that didn't work. So the church knew what was happening, but they didn't know how to respond, and in the case of leadership of the church, actually condoned it. Neighbors knew what was going on, did not know how to respond. Bobby's dad killed Bobby's brother, and he was able to cover it up. And at the funeral, Bobby's mom cried. So he informed her that as soon as they got home, they would be next because they had embarrassed him for the last time. Bobby's mom was able to get the kids out of the house, got the gun that he was going to use on them, and shot him to death. She became the first woman in the state of Minnesota to successfully use battered wife syndrome as a defense. And she was exonerated because of that. And this is what happened to my friend Bobby. This is my friend Bobby. During a hearing Monday, Robert J. Tisland asked that he be allowed to represent himself on a charge of repeated sexual assault of a child. He repeatedly raped a 9-year-old girl. Tisland said the questions dealt with his routine threats to injure the witness. When asked, Tisland said he had been experiencing the blackouts since he was abused as a child. Everybody thought that he was just using this as an excuse, but let me tell you, this was not just an excuse. This is a real thing that happened to him. Tisland said his main goal is to speak directly with members of his family, something he has been forbidden to do since his arrest in early September. He was forbidden to do that because when the police came to arrest him, he grabbed a shotgun and held his family hostage, threatening to kill them all if the police would not leave. I exchanged letters with Bobby, and a couple of years ago he wrote me and he said, "I have become my father." And that is the legacy that is there because a church, a faith community did not know how to respond, did not know what to do. And in this case, the leadership actually condoned what was occurring. My mom's comment, "This happened because the church and child protection don't work together," stuck in my head. And in 2005, I attended the symposium for the prevention of child maltreatment. And at that symposium, someone by the name of Victor Veith was speaking, and I think some of you know who Victor Veith is. And Victor Veith referenced a program in Charleston, South Carolina called HALOS, Helping and Lending Outreach Support, which works to connect the faith community and the child protection community. And as soon as I heard this, I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what we need to do. And I talked with Victor, and I contacted HALOS in South Carolina, and then there were a couple of other programs as well, Covenant to Care in Connecticut. And I connected with those places and found out some information, and then I went to my pastor and I said, "We need to do this." And he said, "Yes, we need to do this." And so I approached the county where I lived and where my church was, and I said, "We really want to do this. Is there any way that we can partner with you to help kids and families impacted by child maltreatment?" And we spent the next several months working out some logistics and, to a large extent, easing the concerns that the county had about, ooh, you're just looking for a new way to spread your faith. You're looking for a new way to proselytize and get church members, to make sure that they knew that this was not at all what was our intent. In fact, partners with Care in Action are strictly forbidden from pushing faith at all. If it happens, you are no longer a partner with us. Their concerns were addressed, they felt comfortable with it, and in September of 2005, they said, okay, we will do this. And in November of 2005, we helped our first family. So that was in Washington County. Since that time, we've expanded. Washington County is a suburb of St. Paul. St. Paul is in Ramsey County, and we are now working with Ramsey County. Dakota County is another suburb, and we're now in Dakota County. And then Winona County, which is actually in the southeast corner of Minnesota, where Minnesota and Wisconsin come together, and is where Victor Veith is now actually just yesterday confirmed that they are going to be partnering with us as well. So we're in 4 counties now in Minnesota. We've had interest from other counties, but as we'll talk about in a little bit, one of the problems that we run into is finding faith communities who are willing to partner with us. Our mission as an organization, to improve the quality of life for children who have experienced abuse and neglect, and to prevent maltreatment through community education and involvement. How do we do this? We have a few key strategies that we follow. To provide good services and opportunities for children who have been abused and neglected and are served by child protection or child welfare services, and to prevent child maltreatment by providing education and resources that equip the community to understand, reduce, recognize, and respond to maltreatment. One of the things that we find, it's an interesting dynamic, is that when an organization starts with us, when a faith community starts with us, they are thrilled to look at number 1, yeah, we want to help people. But they're a little bit more reluctant to look at number 2 because number 2 means a little bit of internal focus, and do I have to be aware of anything that's occurring within my own faith community? But we've found that once they get going on number 1, that raises discussions that bring us right to number 2, because the people become aware of what's going on, and then they just naturally start talking about it. People want to do something, they just don't know what. And this gives the avenue to accomplish that. So what we're doing right now, our current programs, we have an Adopt a Social Worker program. And with the Adopt a Social Worker program, what we do is we pair an individual faith community, could be a small business, and also could be even individuals, directly with a child welfare or child protection worker. They have one worker with whom they partner and maintain contact on an ongoing basis, at least monthly, is what we list as an expectation, which fits pretty well with the Child Friendly Faith Project's goals there, fits with that last one quite well. So they maintain that ongoing regular contact, and they're looking for a couple of things. One, can we support you as a social worker? Because you got a difficult job. And then two, what are needs on your caseload? Is there anything we can help you with? Are there needs that you're just not getting met? And some of these needs might be just basic needs for survival. It might be rent. It might be utilities. It might be food. Or it might be more quality of life stuff. It might be covering dance lessons for a girl because she and her mom are really bonding after involvement with child protection, and that bonding is occurring as the girl goes to dance classes. Well, they're in poverty now and they can't afford the dance classes, and so we pay for the dance classes, and the mom and the girl get to continue bonding over that. It might be camp scholarships. It might be a variety of activities to celebrate the success of a family making it through the system and finally being reunified. So it can be any number of things. The worker lets us know what the needs are, and they contact their partnering faith community, and then that faith community decides if they can meet the need. We don't have red tape. We don't have an extensive referral process or anything like that. It's just you as the worker let us know when there's a need, and we're going to make it as easy as we can to just take care of that need if at all possible. So the county's role is to let us know when there are needs and for that worker to continue having ongoing contact with their community partner. We as an organization kind of help make sure that lines and boundaries aren't being crossed, that people are respecting confidentiality. We're making sure that there isn't proselytizing occurring. Typically, we actually don't get a whole lot of contact directly with the people getting services from us because of confidentiality. It's one of the things that we prepare our community partners for, and some of them, well, if we're not going to meet the family, then we don't really want to be involved. And that's fine. You've got a different purpose, a different calling. But other people are willing to do it. Sometimes we get that connection with the family, sometimes we don't. The last couple of weeks, one of our partners has been working with a family, a young mom, 21-year-old mom, and the request came in, 21-year-old mom, 3 kids, fleeing mom's abusive boyfriend, intense abuse. 21-year-old mom, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. As they fled, the only housing they could find was a very run-down mobile home. And by very run-down, I mean we've got no washer, no dryer, no refrigerator, and holes in the floor to the outside. If you're at all aware of Minnesota in the winter, holes in the floor to the outside is not a good thing. We've already hit 25 below wind chill so far, and that was just November. So on top of that, just the risk of a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old with a hole in the floor, she had plywood over the hole to try and keep her kids from falling through the floor to the outside and getting seriously hurt. So one of our partners was able to send in, well, hey, we've got people in our congregation that do floor work. We'll send in people. Church paid for the materials, and the people did the work for free. Washer and dryer arrived last week, and I would imagine that the refrigerator will be arriving next week. And we also now have Christmas lists for everyone in the family, mom and the 3 kids, and they'll be having a decent Christmas this year. And we go, so this was a situation where I actually did have contact with the person. You're not going to find a lot of other organizations who are going to jump in and do those things. Other organizations aren't usually going to pay for the dance lessons because, well, we're just reserving our funds for those life and death things. Or be able to reach that extensively into a family to help out with multiple needs rather than just one specific area or something like that. And so it gives us a lot more flexibility, a lot more ability to maneuver with what the family's actual needs are. Camp scholarships, rent, utilities, furniture, these are things that I mentioned that we do. And one of the key things is that it helps to keep families intact. we've gotten multiple requests that have come into our partners saying, okay, kids were removed, they've done everything that they need to. Kids are about ready to come back home, but they don't have an apartment, so we can't send the kids back home. Kids are ready to come back home, but they don't have any furniture, so we can't send the kids back home. And we've been able to help reunify families because of being able to provide that need. We've been able to stop families from being separated. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, we got in a request from a worker who said, here's our situation. We've got a mom, 4 kids. Mom was being viciously abused by her boyfriend, to the point where eventually the neighbors ended up calling the police because they were afraid that this woman was being murdered. And the police came, and as the police were approaching, the husband took off, or her boyfriend took off and left and ran. And the police arrived, and the woman verified the abuse and said, yes, I do think he's going to come back and kill me because he said he was going to come back and kill me. And so the police are like, okay, we got to figure out how we're going to keep you safe. Oh, wait a minute. You're undocumented. In that case, if you want, you can go and turn yourself in. And they wouldn't provide any protection for her. We got a call from the worker and said, can you help? Because here's what's going on. She turned herself in because she was afraid she would get killed. And so they were going to send her back to Mexico. That meets the need for safety. Except that 2 of her kids were born in the U.S. And that means those 2 kids stay. And she only gets to take the 2 kids back that were not born in the U.S. This is not a question of immigration. This is keep a family together. What are you doing? And nobody would pay for the $700 to have the other 2 kids that were born in the United States go back with mom. How ludicrous this is. Those kids would have gone into foster care, been in the foster care system their whole lives. Court costs, government insurance. Literally, it would have cost, by the time those kids were 18, $1 million. Our partners were able to provide $700. The family is still intact. And those kids don't have the trauma of being separated from mom. So it gives us the opportunity to be a little bit more mobile and agile and just flex to, okay, what is the need? Okay, we'll work to keep a family together. There are also people that want to be involved with us and help, but either aren't part of a faith community or are part of a faith community that isn't partnered with us. And so we have an email list that additional requests go out to. These might be requests that come into a community partner and they're beyond what the partner can sustain. Or they might be requests that come in from a worker that does not have a community partner. And so we put those needs out for our email partners to meet. We currently have around 160 people that are registered to receive ongoing emails with us when those needs come up, and then they meet those needs. And it's been amazing, again, just to see the same types of needs coming up. In one situation this past Easter, a dad who had custody of his 2 kids and was homeless. Dad and kids are living in the truck. Police find that they're living in the truck, and you can't live in a truck. So now they don't find any place for them to stay. They just make sure they can't stay in their truck, which doesn't help. Just now means they don't have any shelter. Round about that time, Dad started having major heart issues and had to be rushed in to the hospital for open heart surgery. The kids were then brought back to the truck to try and get their stuff, and somebody had broken into the truck and stolen all their stuff. The only one who had anything left, any clothes, anything, was the elementary school-age daughter, because she had already taken to carrying all of her possessions, the 2 outfits and 1 doll she owned, in her backpack, because she thought that was the only way she would be able to keep them. And she knew that if she didn't keep them with her, they'd be gone. So she was the only one that was left with anything, because the truck was cleared out. Well, Dad gets to stay in the hospital for a little while, about a week, And now dad's got to be released from the hospital because the hospital can't keep him there because he's homeless if it's not medically necessary for him to be there. So we get a call from a worker and saying, can you help out with this family? They are going to be homeless on the street again, dad right after open heart surgery, and 2 kids that he won't be able to take care of. And so we were able to pay for a hotel for them to stay at while the county worked to find more permanent housing for them. And because of that, they avoided going back out on the street, especially in dad's condition. And then he was able to continue caring for the kids, move into stable housing, and then stabilize that family. And on top of that, we were able to provide them with an Easter dinner. So opportunities like that. So that is our email partners. We have a Facebook page, and the needs are mirrored on the Facebook page as well. And so far, 100% of requests that have come into our email partners have been met. Not a single request has come in that has not been met. We also have a youth in transition program, and the youth in transition program is really fueled by the terrible outcomes that kids have as they emerge from the foster care system. The most sobering of those statistics in my mind, if a kid is in foster care and then ages out of foster care, gets old enough to not be allowed in foster care anymore and has to move out on their own, within 3 years, 2/3 of those kids are homeless, in prison, or dead. 2/3 of those kids. So we have to work to help these kids as they age out of foster care and move out on their own. And so that is the idea behind our Youth in Transition program. Our Youth in Transition program is funded in large part by a grant from the Edina Realty Foundation. One of the things I've discovered is that when you tell realtors about the connection between homelessness and child abuse, they get that. That registers for them. And so realtors have been really a key part of this Youth in Transition program as we provide stabilization funds for youth as they age out of foster care. And we do that in conjunction with the counties as the county is providing ongoing mentorship and skill building, and then we're providing some financial assistance to help. I mentioned those terrible statistics. Within 3 years of aging out, 2/3 of those kids are homeless, in prison, or dead. We've been doing this part of our program for 4 years. 0% are homeless, in prison, or dead. 0%. That is a victory. We do community education. We work to increase the knowledge in the faith community especially, but across communities as well. What is child maltreatment? What are the effects? How can I do something about it? I talk with churches, help them kind of assess safety in their community. How can we enhance safety? Is it the background checks? Is it making sure that classrooms have windows so that there isn't a way to shut the door and have nobody see what's going on inside? Things like that. So we work to kind of do that type of work and just really striving to increase awareness so that people aren't stuck knowing that something doesn't quite feel right, but I don't know what to do. We have additional community programs. We provide a lot of just activities for families to work on healing and celebrate successes. And so it might be tickets to the zoo, to the circus, community resource dinners, connections with local businesses, and holiday and birthday presents. It's great when you can just, we got a call in, for example, for a kid who was having significant eye issues and had contacts up until that point, or had glasses up until that point, and the glasses were no longer going to be able to adequately correct his vision, and so he needed contacts, but there wasn't any way for the contacts to get paid for. Well, we contacted a local eye doctor who said, yeah, send the kid in. We'll do the exam. We'll cover the contacts. No problem. So it's being able to just connect with the community and say, hey, can you help out? So while our focus is faith communities, it's not just faith communities. The result, keeping families together, fulfilling basic needs, improving the quality of life as these kids and families get a chance to finally recover, to not just be looked at as pariahs or people that you don't want to associate with. I mean, that's how we often respond to these families. Oh, ooh, we don't want to be connected with them. Oh, we don't want to, they're just screaming all the time. We don't want to be around them. Let's back off. They're in poverty. We don't want to be around them. And we break that down, and we create a way in which people raise their awareness, connect with people, and then that connection ends up increasing our own awareness, and then sometimes when we do get to have that connection, helping that person feel like they're not isolated, like they're not alone. And so these things have been huge in keeping families together, in fulfilling basic needs, in improving the quality of life. One of the biggest stories for me is we got a call in from a worker who said, I've got this girl, she's aging out of foster care, and she's moving into her own place, and she doesn't have any furniture. We've been able to help her secure the apartment, but she does not have furniture. Can you help us out? And I said, okay, well, what kind of furniture do you need? Well, we need a bed, and we need a crib, and if, while you're at it, you have any baby clothes, can you throw those into? And I said, okay, sure. What size clothes, and boy or girl? Newborn, don't know yet, boy or girl, because she hasn't had the baby. Oh, has anyone given her a baby shower? No, she doesn't have any family. And the foster parents are there as providing care, but in this case weren't connected super emotionally, and it was kind of more of, okay, you went and got yourself pregnant, well, you're 18, so you can move out anyway. Can we give her a baby shower? I'll check and see. So the worker checked to see, and she was like, I guess if they want to give me a baby shower, they can. And we had a baby shower, opened up our home, and she came, and we had probably about 40 or 50 women there that just showered her with love. No strings attached, just showering her with love and letting her know, you're not alone. We're there for you. You need anything, you let us know, and somebody's got your back. It took, my wife has an SUV, it took us 3 loads in her SUV to get everything back to her house that she received that day. She got her crib, she got the clothes, she got the furniture, she got more. And so these are the types of things that we're able to do when we partner the faith community and the child welfare and child protection system. And it's worked. It has worked. Why should we partner? There's decreased funding from federal, state, and local governments. I mentioned that one of the counties that we're in is Ramsey County, which is where St. Paul, the capital of Minnesota, is located. When we first started, I spoke with somebody at Ramsey County and said, hey, any chance Ramsey County would be interested in doing this? And they said, nope, we're not going to partner with the church. Okay. Well, things took a turn in government funding, and I got a call back saying, you still interested in partnering with us? So yeah, absolutely. That's how we got into Ramsey County. They had said, no, we don't want to partner with the church. And then as funds dried up for them, they got back to us and said, well, we're reconsidering. Increased caseloads. The caseloads that these child welfare and child protection workers are dealing with are ridiculous. Somebody told me today that in their county, the caseworkers had up to 120 people on a child protection caseload. That is ridiculous. According to the National Association of Social Workers, the last time I checked, their recommendation for the absolute maximum, never exceed this amount, was 12. And they had 120. There is no way they're going to be able to help those kids and meet those needs. So those workers need support, and we can give those extra resources that they otherwise would not be able to access. Seemingly increased needs. Many workers have told me that the needs are more significant, more emergency, and more just running out of resources more than ever before. And so this is a huge need. Benefits of the community connection, both for the faith community and the person receiving that help. Flexibility. I've mentioned just the incredible degree of flexibility we have. If we want to do it, we do it. It's about as flexible as it gets. Increased awareness in the community. These faith communities are now aware of it, and it has invariably prompted them to discuss, okay, if it's out there, is it in here? And we've just directly said, yeah, it is. And then we've worked with those communities. We've provided the education to raise the awareness so that they can be mindful of, okay, what is going on here? What do we need to watch for? How can we better respond to people who have been impacted by maltreatment so that our insensitivity or our lack of awareness doesn't cause more harm, more damage, and so that we don't allow something to occur in our community? Priorities of faith and spirituality. Across faith systems, kids are a priority. Protecting kids, being there for kids is a priority across the vast majority of faith systems, and it is fitting with that priority. And then there is the benefit, not like this is why you would do it, but it does present a more positive image of the faith community, certainly more positive than the abuse stories that are out there and are real. Practical ways that we collaborate, the basic needs, quality of life, enrichment activities, the camp, the toys, the dance, youth groups. And this can be a huge thing. Just making your youth group open, not that you're trying to proselytize or anything like that, but just saying, you know what, our youth group is going to be a safe place. It doesn't matter what your background is. You want to come to our youth group, you're welcome. You'll have adults that will be there and care for you. We're not going to, it's a youth group. There'll be mention of our faith. But your involvement isn't contingent on accepting it. And it's up to you if you come. And that has been huge. It's been hilarious seeing some more middle class or upper middle class churches that have embraced this and said, okay, we will. And I tend to lead the youth groups a lot. I'm not currently now, but I have. And in the youth group I was in, we were doing this, and we had this activity for kids shortly before Halloween, and we talked about what are you going to be dressing up as? And one girl says, I'm going to be dressing up as a princess. It's middle school, maybe a little bit young, but okay. And another girl had a similar thing, and then we got to the next kid. I'm dressing up as a hooker. And it was interesting because it then ended up creating a conversation among these two groups of kids that often wouldn't talk. And isn't that one of the things that we're shooting for? Conversation, talk, actually find out about people. And so that's been awesome, seeing that type of stuff happen. Service projects, helping people move, mentoring, connection with elders in the community, education, hosting events, speaking to faith communities, Children's Sabbath, the Children's Defense Fund really has put out some great material around a Children's Sabbath, and they try and encourage people to do a Children's Sabbath type of service. Typically, I think in October is when they push for it, and they've got great materials that they have just to really have one or two Sabbaths in your faith community focused on kids. And let's turn all of our attention to these kids that we want so much to protect and feed into their lives. Strategies that we've had to use. Relationships with participants in faith communities. What we have found is that if I call up a faith community cold turkey and say, hey, you want to partner with us? I almost invariably get told, no, we got enough stuff going on. Maybe another time. I usually get a no if I just call them up cold turkey. However, if we know somebody in that faith community, if I've had a conversation with somebody in that faith community and they're like, oh my gosh, we need to do this, and then they go to their own faith community and say, yeah, let's do it, that is almost always accepted. They'll usually go for that because now it's somebody within our own faith community asking us to do something. Offering partnerships that do not require adherence to non-essential values and beliefs. So as an organization, we have, values and beliefs. Safety of kids, protecting kids, the value of kids. You kind of have to hold those if you're going to be partnering with us. You don't have to believe a bunch of other stuff in order to partner with us. You don't have to believe there is a God in order to partner with us. I've heard that sometimes atheists care about kids too. So we're not requiring any adherence to non-essential beliefs. We're being sensitive, though, to values and beliefs, sensitive to the values and beliefs of our partners, both the community partners at the county and the kids and families that are getting some help. We establish clear guidelines and expectations, and that is absolutely essential, that our partners know going into it. We got to consider confidentiality. You need to realize heading into this that you are probably not going to meet the majority of people you help, because this is confidential. You don't usually get to know who they are. If they at some point decide to come and check you out, that's perfectly fine. But they get to do that on their terms and with you not knowing that they're the person you helped. Clear guidelines on no proselytizing. None of that. It's just not going to happen. If it does, you're not in our organization anymore. Guidelines on the other side as well, as far as requests that come in. This is just something that we've done in order to avoid controversy. Not a statement of right or wrong, but just to avoid controversy, we have asked no requests related to family planning. Because we don't want to get distracted by a whole bunch of other debates that are going to take us away from the goal of helping those kids. Making people feel valued and important, both at the faith community or other partners and at the county and the people that are getting help. Knowing the right contact person is essential. So if you're trying to hook up with an organization and say, hey, let's see if we can do this, knowing the right people to contact is a must. Otherwise, you're going to be just spinning your wheels talking to the wrong person before that wrong person tells you the next wrong person to talk to. And then you spin your wheels until that wrong person tells you the next wrong person to talk to. So figuring out who do I need to contact, and that applies both at community partners and at the county level as well. Starting small. Some organizations start big and boom, there they are. Other organizations, small. For us, starting small has been how we've had to do it. Halos, that program I mentioned in South Carolina, they started big. They had a big gala event, and they pulled in big names and big money, and so they started big, and that worked for them. We didn't quite have the resources for that, and none of us that are involved were fully volunteer run. Nobody's paid. And when donations come in, unless somebody says we want part of it to stop with your organization, it's 100% pass-through. Not 1 cent stays with us unless the person says they want it to. So we don't have that same ability to go big that, for example, Halos does, but starting small. Involvement without a financial commitment is another strategy that helps with this partnership. When we first started, we asked that faith communities that partnered with us commit to at least $50 a month. And there were a couple of them that, we want to be involved, but we can't commit to that. And so we decided, okay, we're going to drop the financial commitment. And it's just, will you be involved with us? Will you hear the needs and respond to the needs as your congregation or your group feels led? And invariably what we found out is the people who said they could not make a financial commitment and therefore did not put it in their budget, but just presented it to their members, gave more. If it was in a budget, it was seen as, we'll give this much and no more. If it was just, we'll present the need, then the whole need is met. And so partnerships without a financial commitment have brought in more money for these families. Focus. Focus of the mission is going to be key. I cannot tell you how many times I have been asked, oh, that is an awesome program. Can you do that with our developmental disability unit too? That is an amazing program. Can you do that with our children's mental health program? And I've had to say no to each of those because it would then spread us too thin. And so we have had to stay just with our mission of kids and families impacted by child maltreatment and with referrals from the child protection and child welfare system. That has been difficult. I hate saying no. That is hard for me, but focus is going to be essential because otherwise it's going to be too difficult to manage. Common barriers and myths. Separation of church and state. There is a separation of church and state. It does not mean that you can't have a partner. And so that is not actually a barrier to this. And similar cases have come before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has verified that yes, we can work together. Finances, mentioned that nothing stops with us unless somebody says they want it to stop with us. It gives us significantly limited funds. And if you work to provide a similar partnership, you're going to have to decide, how am I going to work the financial side of it? And that can be very difficult. Religious objectives. Sometimes people do have those religious objectives, which are understandable. I don't have a problem with somebody wanting to spread their faith. This is just not the venue. And so sometimes, if you're saying we can't, then we're not going to partner. And we've accepted that, and that's fine, because that's not what we're here for. We're not here for that. We're just here for the kids and families. Preconceptions and prejudices. I mentioned how, as a kid, my church did not partner with the child welfare and child protection system. When we started this, I approached my pastor, I think I mentioned this yesterday during somebody else's presentation, about coming to the county with me because the county was hosting a child maltreatment reporter training. And he said, yeah, I'll come. And we got there, and the person doing the training was like, yes, we at the county find this extremely important, and we sent out notifications to every single mandated reporter in the county about this training so that they could come. And they hadn't sent a letter to a single church, a single synagogue, a single mosque, even though clergy are mandated reporters. They had totally forgotten an entire section of mandated reporters. And here they were saying, we sent it to all the mandated reporters. No, you didn't. You missed a lot. So preconceptions, prejudices, the idea that the faith community is just going to want you to back off, so child protection better just stay away. Or the idea that some faith communities have, that child protection just wants to come in and take their kids. So we've got to work against these preconceptions and prejudices, and that's where education often comes in a very big way. Red tape, there's always red tape. We've had less than I would have suspected, to tell you the truth. But it's still there. Liability. We have to consider, and we had a big question and a discussion over this. Are we going to go in and fix that woman's floor? Because what if the workmanship doesn't turn out right? Then who's responsible? Are they going to come back to our organization? So liability becomes an issue that you have to work through and figure out how you're going to handle it. Confidentiality. Confidentiality is extremely important, and we need to maintain that. And like I said, that sometimes means you don't get to meet the people you help. In fact, it usually means you don't get to. So that's kind of what we do, some of the things that we've encountered along the way, the strategies we've used, the barriers we've faced. Any thoughts, any questions just about how that might work? Yeah. So typically how we work it is they'll tell us what the need is. So it might be, so how this request that came into us initially about the woman who needed the floor repaired for her kids. We have a woman who's living in a trailer home and has holes in her floor. Can you help? So that gives me no identifying information. And at that point, we would have had the option of, okay, we can help, and we'll send you, the county, the check to then administer and pay for the repairs. In this situation, somebody said, I do floor work. If they're okay with me coming in, I'll just go in and do the repair for free. And so we presented that, and then the county went back to the woman and said, would you prefer that they try and raise the money to cover the whole repair, or would you prefer that they just send a guy in to do the work? And she said, oh, I'll just send a guy in. So we did require that that person not go there ever to do work alone. So that was one of the things that we set. So it is an expectation, we talked about the clear expectations, that if you are going to actually meet somebody, you are never going alone. That way, hopefully nothing's going to happen, because there's always going to be somebody with you watching what you do. But that's kind of how we deal with it. So a lot of times we get in the request and I send a check out to the county, or the church sends a check out to the county, and the county took care of having her sign a release of information.
In the state of Texas, if you are from Texas, I am a representative of the Department of Family and Protective Services, CPS. I am the faith-based recruiter for Region 11, one of the few faith-based recruiters in the state. But we're developing a portal, what we call a care portal. My role and responsibility for the department is to go out to different congregations, go to the faith-based community, because we're recognizing that we need the faith-based community assistance in helping our children. So what I'm doing is going out to different congregations and saying, hey, we want to partner. Let's help one another. Let me give you some background information on what's going on in your pews. And if there's any way that you and your congregation want to assist us, here's the care portal. You can go on, register on our care portal, and then our workers, as needs are arising within our families that we're servicing with children in the home, families that we're servicing with children that have been legally removed, and even children that are in foster care, children that are aging out, whatever your congregation decides that you're going to best meet our needs, then our workers will then send the email to that care portal, and then your representative and your congregation can go onto the care portal and say, look, in Kennedy County, there's a family in need of a crib. So that's one way we're bridging that gap here in Texas.
So you'd be a great person for somebody to contact if they're here in Texas.
Yes.
Excellent. Very cool. It's also really wonderful to see how it changes the perception of the faith community. In one situation in particular, one of our partners, somebody revealed to the pastor of the church that they had been abused, and this was a teenager revealing that they had been abused, and she immediately called me up and said, all right, Pete, what do I need to do? And I said, okay, so here's a couple of things just to make sure for immediate safety, and now you already know a child protection worker, why don't you give that person a call? And they did. And so then it was just an easy connection because they already had a relationship with that child protection worker. Well, thank you very much. I appreciated the chance to get to talk to you guys about Care in Action and about this, which is really a passion of my heart. So thank you.